Y'all, I am so incredibly angry right now, and I'm going to show you why. This is a follow-up of a video I did on TikTok, and you know what? We'll just get right into it. In YouTube, I can say a lot more of how I feel and go into more detail, so that's what we're going to do. What you're seeing here is, actually, I'll even make it full screen for you, is Senate Bill 857 in the state of Tennessee, and this is basically an amendment to abortion in regard to rape and incest. This is the first page. And as always, on my Instagram, Justin on TikTok, please follow me there if you don't already. You can see this document in its entirety. So this is kind of giving some rules about it, but the stuff that I really want to point out here is this. So if we come here to this section, at the time of the abortion, the woman had been pregnant for a certain amount of times calculated from the first day of the last menstrual cycle. Here's the part where I'm pissed. A, 10 weeks or less for a woman who is 12 years of age or younger. Let's pause there for a second. What women do you know that are 12 years old or younger? I don't know any 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4-year-old women. I mean, not that obviously some of those girls can get pregnant, but at that age, but I don't know any woman that's 12 years old. But if you're 13, you get 8 weeks or less. You get 8 weeks. Other than the obvious, there's several things that I find problematic about this. First of all, even as a man, I'm educated enough to know that when a girl gets their cycle in that time period, that it's not necessarily regular. And they're sure as hell not keeping track of it, because why would they? On top of that, if you're 12 or younger and you end up in a situation where you're pregnant, it is 100,000% you were abused. That being said, 90% of these abusers, the girls knew. 30% of those are family. Meaning that if your abuse started when you were young, before you had sex education, which is what most of the ages here are, 12 and younger, then you might not know that it's wrong because you've been groomed to think that it's okay. So you wouldn't necessarily report. On top of that, you wouldn't necessarily know you were pregnant. So if a 9 or 10-year-old does get pregnant and she doesn't find out until she starts showing or goes to a doctor or whatever, but it would obviously be well past that 10-week mark, you're going to put her body, which probably cannot handle it physically, through something like that. You won't let a child adopt at 10 years old. You won't let a 10-year-old can't even get a part-time job. A 12-year-old can't get a part-time job. How are they supporting this kid? So that's part of it. So the other part, going back to the abusers, if they're groomed, they don't know what's wrong, they might not tell. How many times have you heard stories, and women, you can comment on this if you're comfortable doing so, but how many times have you heard stories where the women don't talk about their childhood abuse until they're much, much older, because there's still victim shaming going on today. That's why women don't come forward when they do. That's why sometimes it can take years for it to happen. And the same thing for 13. I mean, yeah, I know that at some points in time, if you're dealing with kids your own age, if you get to, I don't know, 15, 16, 17, you could be having sex, and that's a different story. But typically 13, 14, maybe even 15. Again, I'm going to still say it's probably more than likely is abuse. It's frustrating. But now let's talk about we're not even at the worst part, though. We're not even at the worst part. So on top of that, they're going to start requiring these doctors to take samples of tissue or what have you for these women, girls who have been raped, and preserve it in case the TBI would want it. TBI, for those of y'all who don't know, is the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Why would the TBI want something like this? Well, I will tell you. They want it because if it's decided that you lied about your rape, and they don't specify how they're determining that. It could be through a judge. It could be through the police just deciding. It could be really anything, but they decide that you've lied about it. They want to have, I guess, tissue and stuff to analyze. So now let's get down to the punishment. If they've decided that you've lied about it and you had an abortion that goes against these rules, it doesn't specify of age. So it could be, let me turn this back on so you can see the whole thing. It doesn't specify age, so it could be you're 10 years old, could be you're 11, 12, and you have an abortion. They decided that you lied about your abuse. there is a mandatory minimum sentence, okay? Mandatory minimum sentence. You can see it here, okay? To at least 3 years of incarceration, and the person must serve 100% of that 3-year sentence. Now, let's talk about what the assailant gets. The minimum time for an assailant, a rapist, in the state of Tennessee is 1 year. 1 year. So anyways, as a husband and the father of a daughter, this infuriates me because somebody could violate them, they get pregnant. And this is not even talking about the healthcare perspective with abortion, because for those of y'all who are unaware of the story, my daughter was born at 29 weeks and 3 days, and had her doctor not made split-second decisions, which under the new Tennessee laws, if something had gone sideways and the baby died, our daughter died, then the doctor could have been held accountable. So that split-second decision might not be made now because of that. And my wife would go to prison because that would then be classified as an abortion. So I'm not even talking about that. But now, if you are a child, and your dad, your stepdad, uncle, brother, friend of the family, whoever rapes you, and you get pregnant, you have to come forward and talk about it, assuming you know that it's wrong. Allow them to do, obviously, the rape kit on you, make your statement. And if it's decided that you're lying, you can go to prison for 3 years, minimum. Tell me that this is not messed up. Tell me that this is not just so incredibly wrong, and that we have gone backwards by at least 60 years. More people need to know about this, and more people need to talk about it, especially men. Because that's who's now making the decisions for healthcare, is mostly men in politics and voters. And they shouldn't be, because they know nothing. That's all. Leave me your thoughts in the comments, and please follow if you don't already, or subscribe.